All right, thanks, Sandra. Let's go ahead and bring in John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, also former law clerk for Justice Clarence Thomas. John, it sounds like the Trump administration is making an argument on two fronts. On the legal front here, these kids should appropriately be sent back home reunited with their families, and then also on humanitarian grounds, saying we don't want them caught up in the foster care system here or sitting around in HHS custody for months, maybe years on end.
What you have here is a conflict between two different policies in immigration law. And unfortunately, this is the case with lots of areas of immigration law where the statutes seem to conflict. Here you have a policy of trying to keep families together and not allowing people into the country who don't have legitimate asylum claims. You can't come here and claim asylum just because you want better economic and working conditions. You have to be legitimately afraid of your government and fleeing here for that reason. On the other hand, usually every alien, children included, get a hearing before their deportation or removal. And so what the Trump administration is legitimately saying, I think, is that they would like to see how these two conflicting policies are supposed to be reconciled when President Trump has also reached an agreement with the head of the other country to accept these children back.
So here's what Stephen Miller posted about this. He wrote, the Biden judge is effectively kidnapping these migrant children, refusing to let them return home to their parents in their home country. Do you agree with that?
I don't think I would say that the judge or advocates here are kidnapping the children. I think that might go too far. I understand the rhetoric of it. But the question, again, is the U.S. government Congress has passed two different policies here. Do we want the children here to remain and get hearings, or do we want to keep families together? There are different provisions and different statutes would call on the government to have these two different conflicting responsibilities. Now, here we're also seeing a replay of the fight between the Trump administration and these trial judges all around the country. This trial judge has not just stopped this one flight, this judge has also stopped all deportations against any children from this country. And create a nationwide injunction, which the Supreme Court has recently said judges are not supposed to do.
So to that point, take a look at this. This is immigration citizenship cases under Trump, which he is supposed to have the presidential prerogative to enforce the laws on the books. 22 of them temporarily blocked, 14 blocked pending an appeal, 25 are awaiting a court ruling. Do you think that's what the Supreme Court intended to be happening right now?
No, I think what's going to happen is that the Supreme Court is going to have to re-enter this fight. It tried to make clear that district judges should not try to stop the government from pursuing immigration policies nationwide. They can issue injunctions as to particular individuals who appear in their courtroom. But for nationwide policies, the Supreme Court wants those cases to get up to the Supreme Court quickly so that the Supreme Court justices can decide what the nationwide ruling is going to be, not just individual trial judges handpicked by plaintiffs all around the country. And so I think what's going to happen is the Supreme Court's going to have to come back again and remind these trial judges that they should be deferential to the executive and to Congress in working out any fights about immigration. If they're going to try to stop the government, they should only do it with individual cases and let all the other cases try to get up as fast as possible to higher courts.
I want to ask you about one of our other top stories this afternoon. A U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer today blocking President Trump from deploying National Guard troops to the state of California. But he did rule that the 300 National Guardsmen who are currently there inside L.A. can remain in place. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Yes, this is another example of a stubborn trial judge who doesn't want to accept the guidance of the higher courts. You might remember this same judge tried to stop the initial deployment of troops to LA, and he actually went ahead and said there's no emergency, there were no legal grounds to send the troops at all. And on an emergency basis, his case, that decision was appealed to the appellate court, and he was reversed unanimously by these appellate judges. But I don't think he's learned his lessons. So now he's taken a second step back and said, okay, even if there is an emergency, okay, even if troops are allowed to go to LA and to protect federal officers performing their duty, I'm going to still say they shouldn't do anything else. They shouldn't engage in law enforcement activity. Now, as far as I know, the Trump administration is not trying to have troops out in LA doing that either. So I think this is a trial judge, again, who's going too far. He's trying to exercise these powers, which even his appellate court colleagues are trying to stop him from exercising. I expect the Trump administration will appeal this too. They will say that they're not engaging in law enforcement with these troops. Everyone agrees they shouldn't be doing that. All they're doing is protecting the federal government and protecting federal officers as they perform their legitimate duties in immigration or going after drug cartels, and that this district judge is getting too minutely involved in the way the executive branch carries out its lawful activities.
All right, John Yoo, thanks for breaking that down for us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.